Hello and welcome to Inside the Recruiting World. My name is Bedford-Flood. I am a leadership coach and peer advisory facilitator, and I help leaders achieve better results, grow their companies faster, and maximize their impact as a leader. I have with me today Lori Soliday, and we're going to be talking about one of the most pressing issues in organizations, and that is recruiting and retention. So, without further ado, let's get started. Lori, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate you being part of this conversation. We both know that this is a conversation that or an issue that almost all companies face. Recruiting issues, I can't find the right people. When I do find them, they're not sticking, they're walking off the job. They end up not having the skills that we're looking for. They're not staying past 6 months. So let's kind of discuss some of those issues and problems that companies are facing. First of all, why don't we talk about how you got into the staffing industry? Give us an overview of your career path and how you entered into the recruiting world.
I stumbled upon it. I truly just stumbled upon it. So 35 years ago, 1989, I joined the Labor Ready group. I answered an ad for an outside salesperson. I thought how cool I could have a little cell phone and a pager. And I thought, woohoo, this is the job for me. I got to talk to different people every day. I got to learn all the different businesses that came, there was so much to do. I never got bored.
So you answered an ad.
I answered an
There's a
ad.
lot of people on here that aren't even going to know what that means. What like a newspaper ad or?
It was a newspaper ad. Yes. Actually, it was in the green sheet, if you recall what a green sheet was.
Oh,
It
yes,
was a
yes.
free publication and it was in the green sheet.
Yes, absolutely remember the green sheet. That was back in the day. Now we're telling our age. Maybe we should move on from this question.
Okay, moving on.
So we both know the staffing industry is a difficult industry to say the least. It can be very challenging. What has inspired you to stay in this profession with all of the issues and problems that arise on a day-to-day? And so what's made you decide to stay in this profession?
Uh, you know, um, I've never thought of anything but this. I fell in love with it 35 years ago. I was on a different path. I was strictly labor. I had, a certain niche that's all I did. 20 years passed and I thought, well, let me develop, let me go into this other side of it, which is when I joined you. Um, and I live for it. I love the day to day. I love the talking to different types of businesses, talking to different people, matching them up, making those love connections. I live for that, the success. And I'm
So
okay with the failure.
yeah, well, failure's part of
Part of the
growth,
deal. It's
right?
part
I
of the deal.
mean, and it doesn't matter what your profession is. If you're not failing, you're not growing.
Right, right.
So,
That's what I
uh,
thought. I'm okay with that too.
yeah, absolute firm believer in that. So, what would you say at this point? What are you seeing being some of the most challenging positions that you're trying to fill?
Uh, the higher end skilled stuff, I would say the things that aren't growing up and saying I want to be, maybe your electricians and your plumbers and your welders, those fine-tuned skills that those guys make 38, $48 coming out of the box, but nobody wants to go to school for that. Everybody, so the blue collar stuff. I think everybody is leaning towards the white collar stuff and I want to be this when I grow up and I'm going to go to college. And so I just think that some of the things that we as Americans, we as people need every day, trucking industry, the grocery stores, the things that 2020 taught us what was important, those are where the community seems to be lacking.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of get off track here with my questioning and really focus on that because I think that you keyed on something when you said, these are not the types of positions that people are wanting to do anymore. For
Right.
some reason, it has been pounded in the heads of the younger generation that in order to be successful, you have to have a college degree.
Correct.
And I completely disagree with that.
Me
I've
too.
always disagreed with that. Um, I believe that the electricians, the plumbers, the truckers, all
The
of the
backbone.
welders, all of these not tech positions, but these technical positions are the types of positions that make the world go round. And without electricians, without plumbers, without AC techs and truckers, what do we have?
Yeah.
So I completely disagree with the whole mentality that in order to be quote unquote successful, you need to have a college degree. So why do you think, or what would you say is out of those types of roles, which ones do you think that these roles are harder to fill than even just your general labor roles, or you think it's probably 50-50?
It's going to be pretty close. So the general labor roles, I feel like, especially here in the great state of Texas, they're just not coming up with the pay that needs to happen. That difference hasn't happened. Um, those are general labor roles are just as important. The people that are packaging the egg rolls that we eat, the people that are putting labels on the products that we use that are out of Home Depot, all those general things that we go and shop and buy for, somebody needs to do that, and not everybody wants to do that.
Yeah,
And then you've got those clients that are still trying to pay 2016 wages in 2024, and it's just not the same.
yeah,
And they're just refusing to believe it.
yeah. And I know, a common sentence in our staffing office is, why is somebody going to go to work in the heat in a warehouse doing physical labor for $16-17 an hour when they can go to HEB and make $18 an hour working in the AC and not having to do the labor intensive work that they're having to do in some of these warehouses?
And it's,
So
yeah,
is that something that you're seeing quite often?
for sure. And also the structure. So these youngins want to, this generation wants to pick and choose when they work. Well, when you take a job like HEB or Buc-ee's, let's say, and those guys are paying $18 an hour, you pick your schedule. You tell them, hey, I'd like to work Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And they're like, cool, no problem. Well, when you're in a structured environment and they're paying less, and like you said, the conditions aren't fabulous, it's structured. You have to be there Monday through Friday. It's this time to this time. People don't like schedules anymore. They want to do the work. I feel like they're okay doing the work, but they want to do it on their terms.
Yeah,
And so that's another disconnect between that worker and that employer. It's
yeah.
just
And that's
the
a
olden
hard
days.
disconnect to make connect.
Yeah,
That's a tough one.
it is. I'm not going to convince either side that they're right or wrong.
So, speaking of convincing either side, what do you do when you have more applicants telling you, well, I don't want to work on Fridays. I only want to work Monday through Thursday. How do you get past that? Do you just keep recruiting until you find someone who's willing to work those hours? What is the meat in the middle
I
here?
would say 80% I keep recruiting and just try to find that right fit, that person that mirrors and is okay with the situation. But 20% of my goal is to keep educating that client. Here's what I'm coming across. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what they're asking. Do we have anything coming up that you think we might be able to do this or that, or just whatever the feedback I get, I try to be 100% honest with the client so they know what I'm coming across as their business partner.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some of the key qualities that you look for in a candidate for a successful placement?
Well, I want to
And
try to go ahead.
well,
Go ahead.
let's say we're going to talk about maybe your white collar workers right now. What are some of the key qualities that you look for? And it could be actually it could be blue collar workers too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I try to truly find out what they're looking for. They can come fill out an application and they can put, I want this much money and I want to do this. But the more you talk to them and discover what really they're looking for, what really fits into their lifestyle, what they're looking for, it's always different. It's never what they wrote on the paper. Sure, maybe 1 out of 10, but most of the people, they're discovering as well what they want to do with their lives, what brings them joy, what makes them get out of bed. So I just think you have to keep asking questions. But on the flip side of that, you know, teaching them, you got to put on in a little work before you get the big prize at the end. You know, they all want it that day one. I
Yeah.
need this. It's like, okay, but if you start here and climb that mountain, you'll be there. You'll be
Yeah.
there, but you got to give it a little time. That's what they don't want. They don't want to dedicate the time. They want
Well,
it right
we
there at the
live in,
beginning.
things are different now. We live in a world where instant gratification is a must,
It's a must.
and
Yes,
they want that. They want that instant. And we've got a lot of college graduates coming out that are expecting to make 75 and $80,000 a year with no experience.
for sure.
That's another issue and problem that we've seen in the recruiting industry, and I've even seen with my coaching clients, is that I've got these roles open, but nobody wants to come to work. And when they do want to work, they're wanting 75 and $80,000 a year. They want to work 4 days a week, and they want to be able to have their cell phone sitting on their desk and
Oh,
shop on
that
the
cell
internet
phone.
all day long.
Yeah.
So those are trends, quote unquote, that
They,
I'm not sure that we're going to see going away anytime soon. We live in a world of, cell phones and internet and AI, and those are things that aren't going to be going away.
yeah,
And
AI.
speaking of AI, now me and AI have become really, really good friends in the last year. But do you see, I get a lot of questions from people when I'm talking to them, like, are robots going to take over our jobs? So what do you say when let's just say an applicant comes in and says, well, I can't get a job because robots are taking over. What is your response to?
Well, stop watching the Terminator, start there. And then moving forward, not everything can be automated. You can't take
No.
the personal touch out of everything. The things that, like I said, are most important, the things that we live by, it's not automated. I know there are cars driving themselves down the road. I'm not okay with that, but I know that's happening. People are getting Uber rides and there's no driver. And so the old lady in me doesn't understand that. But on the other hand, you some of the stuff is okay, great. It just allows us to expand and broaden and grow. But some stuff is still confusing to the
Mhm.
average person,
Mhm.
of what's the right amount of this, what's the wrong amount of that. Just understanding how to grow, how to
Mhm.
learn.
Yeah, and there's also some of your really larger companies like Amazon that's done some layoffs, and they are using robots to do some of their
Like
packing,
automated.
shipping, those types of things. But a lot of those people, some of those people are moving into different types of roles. So then we've got other companies that are turning to robots because there's not there's not enough people. So
Right.
we've got all these positions open, and I'm just going to use America in general, and not enough people to fill them. We saw in 2020 where a lot of the baby boomers were retiring, and that was the largest generation.
Right.
And we've got all these baby boomers retiring because COVID hit, and they're like, well, I'm going to go ahead and take my retirement now. Why wait?
Right.
Now's the
Right.
opportunity. And so we don't have enough people coming up really to take over those jobs. And that's been an ongoing issue since 2020. We're now 4 years into it. There's no change in sight because you can't just develop people. People can't just magically appear. So
Right.
we know the next 20 years, we're going to have a labor shortage. And so some companies are using robots and AI to make up for that loss.
Mhm.
But are there still jobs out there for people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that most of the fields, especially here, manufacturing, production, chemical, all that stuff is still just blowing and going. And though that requires hands-on stuff. In this area of town that we live in Deer Park, I would say that 90% of our clients have open orders.
Mhm.
So very few are filled and satisfied. Even if they are filled, they can see something coming on the horizon that they need to make a plan for. So I just feel like you're right. We are going to have a shortage. We are currently in a mild shortage because people are opting to do different things. They're opting to travel the world in a van and work off of laptop, and just that generation, that millennial generation, they changed their mind
Yeah.
and they made a turn, and so it's definitely affecting. I can see 10 years down the road it being a bigger problem than it is today.
Oh yeah, it's they've kind of changed the way that we do business.
Yes,
Again, it goes back to I want to
yes,
be able to work remote. And we know remote has its pros and its cons.
correct.
During COVID, I know that a lot of clients were saying, the remote thing, we didn't realize it was going to be such a great thing for us, but people are actually getting more work done because there's not the interruptions in the office. People aren't standing around and just chit-chatting in the morning for 30 minutes while they're drinking their coffee or,
Mhm.
be going into somebody's office and there just wasn't the interruption. So there were quite a few things that got done quicker, faster, and more efficient. But then people started going back into the office, and now we're seeing some going back into the office, some not going back into the office. Some of them are still working remotely. What are some of the trends with that you're seeing at this time? Are you seeing most of your clients going, they're all back in the office now, or are some still
Yes.
remote? You got 50/50?
No, I don't have 50/50. So every single direct hire order that I have worked on in the last month have all been, please make sure they're okay with an in-office role. And so most of them have had a taste of that hybrid or that fully remote, and they want at least the hybrid. They're like, well, I don't mind coming in a couple of days, but I'd like to do the rest of my work from home, and they're joining a team, and let's just use accounting as an example. If you're going to be a team lead for 5 accounting staff accountants, this and that, you kind of need to be engaged and
Absolutely.
in their face. And I just feel like that's where, sure, you might be able to get a little more work done if you are that kind of individual that can stick to a plan in the day and not be like, oh, let me go pet my dog. So they're just, you don't have those distractions in the office that you do at home. And I think it's very easy to get comfortable and maybe work for part of that time and play for part of that time. So there's so many memes about, oh, let me just move my mouse pad around so they think that I'm working. And people think that's funny. And it's like, it's not really that funny. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I, I can see some roles being able to do that.
Yeah.
If you do like a specific desk job where you're checking documents all day or something like that. But a lot of things, you need to be part of the team, part of the crew, part of
Mhm.
the ship. So
Yeah, absolutely. So with there being a candidate shortage, talent shortage, how do you make the experience different from what maybe if they're applying, let's just say it's you and another recruiter, and we both know in the staffing industry that sometimes the candidates don't always get the most memorable experience from going to a staffing company. So
true.
how do you do things different? What do you do to try to enhance that experience for those candidates so that they remember Lori, they remember ProSource, and they are referring you to their friends? What are some of the things that you do to try to set yourself apart?
Well, I try to make sure that I'm recruiting the right individual, because I don't want to bring in a ton of people in here and not be able to match them to a job. I want to make sure that I'm meeting their needs. I'm listening to what they have to say, and I'm looking them in the eye when I do it. They're in person. They're in my office. We're going over what they're looking for. We're not reading them a job description that the client's looking for, because it's not about them at that moment. It's about the person in front of me and what they're looking for. And half the time, they're not a good fit for the job, even though on paper they may have been.
Yeah.
On paper, they may have matched great, but in person, when you drill down to that basic, here's really where my mindset is at, it changes. And you're like, and then when you recognize that and you tell that person, I heard what you said, you repeat it back to them. Here's what I heard. I'm not sure this is the right client for you because of this, this, and this. That's what makes them remember me, because I listened to them.
Yeah.
So client as well, I got to listen to them both. And yes, most of the time they're not a direct match.
Yeah. And that's where the successfulness comes from, is taking that time to really understand the candidate and drill down, because as you said, a lot of time what they want is not actually what they're telling you they want.
Right. They might not even know.
No, and some of them, they're just looking for a job. Like they want to go to work, but it's not about just throwing the first person out there we can find to make the placement. We want to make sure that we're making a placement that is going to stick and is going to be a good fit culturally for the client and the candidate. So I think that the whole drill down is very important. Taking time to understand them and where they're coming from. It's not always what's on paper. And I think too, that's a mistake that hiring managers make. This is the part about AI that I don't like, because so much is electronic these days. It's automated. Resumes are being sent into the company's database system, and the words are automatically ruling out that candidate before that it even gets to the hiring manager.
Right.
This is the part
missing out on some good people.
I don't like the automation when it comes to that, because they do miss out on some good people. The resume doesn't always tell the story, and it can only tell so much. And especially when companies are saying, we want everything condensed, we want their resume on one sheet. Well, how do you do that? That's hard. It's very hard.
It is hard.
So what are common mistakes? This kind of goes into what we're, in a sense, what we're just talking about. What are common mistakes that companies make that can negatively affect them attracting top talent?
Consistency is the first thing that comes to mind. This way with person A, this way with person B, and person C, it's toss up. I think consistency, structure, just treating them right. They're coming into your office to do something for you each and every day. Treat them like they deserve. They showed up, and I think there's a disconnect between supervisors and their underlings, where they think that they've got to be, rough and tough. And sure, there might be a moment for that, but in the end, you want to groom these people. You want to groom them to do the things that you want them to accelerate at, and they need a positive vibe from that, just not that barking, that yelling, and that just doesn't get anybody anywhere. It's just my biggest concern when we have supervisors that, and even talking to them, hey, listen, Joe's not going to come back to work because of what happened today. Just developing that side as well, and coaching them along the way of, if you want to keep these people at your job, and you do, because there's not that many of them.
Right.
So
yeah, you have to treat them
right.
Respect.
Let's teach them things that they feel like they are a part of a ship that's moving forward, that's going the right direction. They need that positive energy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist in every company, but
it doesn't.
I do believe that working with leaders, as long as I've been working with leaders, that they hope that their supervisors and managers are treating these people regardless of what their job title is, whether it's a general labor or an accounting clerk or a receptionist, that they're treating them with respect.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case. It's not always the case. So what are some things that candidates can do to make themselves more attractive to potential employers or even recruiters?
I think it starts definitely with the resume. I read more unstructured resumes that don't have each and every bullet point is in the wrong person, or perhaps not an actual job duty, like more like I'm highly organized. Those vague statements. And when you're looking at those resumes and let's just say you're a logistics coordinator, list those duties, dispatch, spoke with these truck lines. You want to just drill down to the actual job duty and take out those paragraphs that just say, I'm a really great person. You should totally meet me. So those are the things nobody wants to read. Make it structured, make it meaty,
Yeah.
leave off
Yeah.
those potatoes.
And, another thing too that I would throw in there is for people to put their successes on the
Yes,
resume,
yes,
not just their job duties, but what did you do? What have
right.
you done for the company to help that company become successful? What have you done in your department that has set you apart from someone else? What type of awards have you received? What have you achieved? Did you help the company achieve better profits? Things like that as well, instead of just really focusing on duties, because that's what most resumes are doing, is it's focusing on their duties and not their successes. And
Yes.
that's important as
No,
well.
that makes
So,
sense. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, so, and it goes back to, we're going to flip the tables a little bit now. What can companies do to make themselves more attractive? Because now we've got this area again, going back to the lack of talent out there. We're not just having to sell the candidate to the client, we're having to sell the client to the candidate as well,
Oh,
regardless
yes.
of what position it is. So what is it companies can do to make themselves more attractive to talent?
Right off the bat, I have to say, Google reviews. I've had more stopped conversations because they went and read the Google reviews from the client. And I know that you can't control that, every piece of it, but you can certainly stay on top of it, try to reach out to the people who may be disenchanted with you or whatever the case may be, because we both know anybody can say anything on the internet.
Absolutely.
And it's just all of a sudden true. So, you don't get to say, well, that's just certainly not what happened. You don't get to defend yourself. So I do think that's a big deal. I think just having those structured, detailed job descriptions, putting them through a proper training period. Don't leave them alone on the first day and be like, good luck. I just a little more structure, a little more discipline,
Yeah.
a little more roadmap. Here's where you can go with the successes for my company. I find that nobody knows where they can go in that company.
Yeah.
What are other options? Where can I grow to? If I do this job, great. What's my next step? Nobody's putting a clear map, a roadmap to success.
Right, absolutely. I agree with that. What is the ability to be able to advance and grow within the
Right.
organization? I think
That's
another thing
got to
that
put a
that
sparkle in
companies,
your eye.
yeah, yeah. I think another thing that companies can do to make themselves more attractive to the candidates is almost the same thing with the resume. The resume is going to speak about your accomplishments. That's what the job description should start out with. Here's the accomplishments of the company. And it's not just about job duties that you're going to do within the organization, but
Right.
how you're going to help them move to that next level.
Right.
The successes of the organization, what type of awards have they received? What have they achieved? Those are things that people want to know about. It's not just about the job itself, but
Right.
where's this company going? What is their path moving forward? Where do they want to be in 5 years? That's always been the question to the candidates. Where do you want to be in 5 or 10
Yeah.
years?
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
can't stand that question anyway,
Yeah.
but
It's a little
um,
silly.
yeah. But making attractive job descriptions, quote unquote, that's going to include more than just job duties.
Yeah.
What are the
Yeah.
successes of the company?
Yeah, have
Um,
a liaison like on their level that is appointed because they've had a great attitude and they've had a great success. Somebody on their level that can be like, hey, if you do this, here's what I was rewarded with. Just another person. I mean, because honestly, this whole world is, well, what did he say and what did she say? And I saw
yeah.
this on the internet. So I don't know if work with that. Make a person your little spokesmodel, if you will, and just I love this
Yes.
place and here's why.
Yes, absolutely. And your internal employees will certainly start referring
Yes.
talent into the organization. If you're treating people well,
If you're, yes. Yes.
that's
And if
just
you're not, you arrive on the first day and people say, hey, don't work here, run for your life. I've had it happen. And it's like, gosh, well, that was a lot of work for nothing.
definitely don't want that to happen.
I want that to happen.
So, what advice would you give for new graduates that are entering into the job market? They've just graduated with their degree in accounting,
Mhm.
and they want to go to work at ABC company. What advice would you give them?
Just that you'll have to start below where you think you're going to start. You just got out of school. That's not experience. They're both great. There's school's great, but it doesn't teach you how to handle actual job situations. So you need to start somewhere as an intern, or just maybe a little AP clerk, and then expose your talent at that point. So show them what you can do, learn the business. You need to know how that company works, their structure, what makes them tick, because every single company is different. So,
Mhm.
you can't say it's going to be go in there and do ABC, but you've got to get in there and do your recon, figure out, how to grow, how to move up. So, but you're going to have to start below where you think you are.
Absolutely. 95% chance you're not going to start out as a manager when you
95%.
have no
There
experience
might be
at
that
all.
one person, but he's probably somebody's nephew or,
That's what I was going to say,
just
fight
saying.
somebody's child. So what can job seekers do to remain competitive? They've gone on an interview, it's between them and three other people. Is there any advice that you would give someone in that situation? This is a job that they really want. So what can they do to, again, maybe try to set themselves apart from the other applicants for this one particular role?
A well-written thank you letter goes a very long way. Something that speaks to the conversation that you had, that you took in all that information that they told you, you heard it, and you'd like to move forward. Just something well constructed. A thank you letter is a great way to go. Hopefully, you've impressed them in the interview, and that'll just be the last little bit of push that you needed to get the position. So
Yeah.
they have to know that you want it. That's where it is. They have to know you want it.
Yeah, and that's key. That is key. And that, the whole thank you letter was something that was quite important back in our day, and it still is today, but I think it's kind of gotten lost.
Yes.
And so people aren't doing that as much. And so that's definitely a way to set yourself apart from the competition, is by sending that thank you letter. Now, in turn, I would say for the companies, it things have shifted. Again, we're talking about the shift. Things have shifted where now it's expected that companies should send out a letter. Let's say it's those three candidates. You send out a letter to the other two, thanking them for their time to come in and interview. We appreciate you coming in and interviewing. We enjoyed the conversation, but unfortunately, we have gone with another candidate. That also keeps their reputation
Yes.
alive and
Yes.
strong, where
It
people,
just should,
it makes
respect.
a difference because
Yeah,
companies aren't doing that. And they a
they
lot of
aren't.
them haven't, never
Yeah.
have. And
Yeah.
so that is one way for a company to set themselves apart as well, because
Yeah.
again, that's just as important as it is for the candidates to set themselves apart.
That you respected their time. You understand, what went into that. So I think respect is something we all need both ways every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So what has been one of your most memorable moments in your recruiting career? Now, we know that being in the industrial recruiting world, there's a lot of memorable moments.
Yeah.
So we kind of got to keep it a little bit clean here, because some of those not so clean. So what would you say has
Um,
been one of your most memorable clean moments in the recruiting industry?
for me, it was the change that I made between the two after 20 years of staying in that labor business and telling myself, look, you don't really want to be wearing your support hose knocking on construction trailer doors. Let's reinvent ourselves and hop onto this, stay in that recruiting, the stuff that you love, but moving. And I think for me, it just when I came on board with ProSource staffing, it changed the dynamic of what I was doing, and I fell in love with this side. So just learning that temp to hire, just adding that feather to my cap, getting those direct hires when you were only doing that day labor niche that, you knew the basics and everything, but you needed to learn and grow. I think that was my most memorable thing, is just making that change.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
reinventing myself into a different role than I had ever been in before. But that worked for me. My mindset was right for it.
Yeah.
I just needed to make that move. I mean, I could tell stories all day long, but we don't want to do that.
Yeah, we could certainly tell some stories. So you lead a team of four, and there's always different personalities, there's different motivations. Um, how do you maintain that department? What do you feel is your secret to success in your recruiting area?
I think that a lighter environment, a happier environment where these girls want to come to work and participate in the challenge. Because this is challenging work. We don't get people call, they're not that nice. They're disrespectful, and you've got to keep your chin up and move forward and talk to that next person who will be lovely. So I just think keeping it light, keeping a clear focused goal, making sure that we're all the same team. There's no individuality in the group setting. You want everybody to work together,
Yeah,
but then you also want them to flourish as individuals in their roles.
absolutely.
So just that daily interaction, keeping things on track, laughing. It's very, very important to laugh. This is a tough, like you said, this is a tough gig. You're
It
dealing with
is.
a lot of different personalities, and sometimes you feel a little picked on, and you have to know it's never personal.
Yeah,
You may feel it. You may feel like it's personal, but if you take that equation out, take your emotions out of it, don't get your feelings hurt, because there's no room for feelings in staffing. You just have to keep driving the bus in the right direction and keep trying. And the more you do, the better it'll work out. So I think
yeah,
we've got about an 82% temp to hire fill ratio, which is high. We're very proud of that. That means that we took the time, we gave our successes, and sure, they might not need another person, but when they ever do, they're going to remember that we were the ones who were successful. So
right.
they will call us back.
So we know that there's several companies out there that we work with that have internal recruiting teams.
Mhm.
ProSource doesn't just work with companies that don't have internal recruiting teams.
Right.
ProSource partners with companies that have internal recruiting teams because of various reasons. Maybe they're not finding what they need. Maybe they've got so many orders open they can't keep up with it, and so they have to bring in an outside source. Um, and so there, with those internal recruiting teams, there's a lot of people that quote unquote want to go that want to go in recruiting. Okay.
Sure.
And recruiting is not what it's cracked up to be. I know when I went into recruiting, I had this idea that this is going to be the best job ever. I get to help people launch their career, find a job, have that job to bring in money to support their families. This is going to be the best gig ever.
Mhm.
And I quickly realized that the majority of people weren't wanting to work. And so it became very unmotivating and
Mhm.
discouraging to a certain extent. And that can be with external recruiters like ProSource or even internal recruiters.
Mhm.
What advice would you give to a recruiter to help them overcome that, to where to stay positive and to stay motivated and to stay passionate about what they're doing?
Look for your victories. Even if you don't get the fill, look for those victories. Like you got the good match, you found this. He checked 9 out of 10 boxes. And now he may not have gotten this position, but you can do this with him. You can think of all these other clients that you can send him to. So take your failures, turn them into a win somewhere else, You're never going to pound every peg in a hole. It's never going to
Right.
happen. And again, just going back to don't take it personally. It's not
Yeah.
personal. It has nothing to do with you. And it's not about your feelings either. If you've got this resume, you're like, oh, I know this guy is perfect for company ABC. I'm gonna get them to see him. Well, ABC may not be in the mood for that, or they may not have an opening, or they may not have something, but it's not about you. It's about your client and it's about your candidate, and trying to make those love connections on the daily. And just remembering the wins and not focusing on those losses, because they're not really a loss. You've got a person, you've got a client in another day, in another time. Those could be new successes. So for me, I live for this business. It just makes sense to me. My little chaos loving heart just jumps all around town, and I like to do this. I'm not built like everyone. So everyone is not built like me. So if you want to be a recruiter, make sure that your skin is thick.
Yes.
Make sure that you are okay putting in the work, because it's not going to come in your time. Okay, it may not fit into an 8 to 5 schedule. Something may happen beyond that. Something may happen before that. You just have to be willing to do the work, to do the
Yeah.
work, to drill down, to make those love connections, grow a business.
Yeah, because recruiting is not
It's not for everybody.
it's not an 8 to 5 business, first
It's
of all.
not.
It's especially in the type of recruiting ProSource does, where it's industrial, it's 24 hours a day.
It
So
is.
there could be times, this is the advice that I'm going to give recruiters or people that are considering recruiting, is you better be open to working 24 hours a day. If you're looking to go into industrial recruiting, because there's always going to be a problem. There's always going to be an issue. There's always going to be somebody that doesn't show up to work, or somebody that's sick. And
There's a
then you're
situation
having
every
to,
day. Mhm.
you're having to refill a position at 9 o'clock at night. It's not the glorious job that people think. It can be quite rewarding.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. But it's not glamorous. You're on vacation. You're still having to take calls, fill orders. It-
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not all that's cracked up to be. So
Yeah.
then that leads into my next question, and recruiting is very demanding. Obviously, we've already covered that. How do you manage that work-life balance?
So, this is all I know. Like I said, I've done this for 35 years, and I need work in this category. I do. I need to learn to take my vacation times. I need to learn to, it's okay not to take every single phone call if I know my team is handling something. I don't have to have my hand right in it, because I've got some capable people underneath me who are willing to help. So I need to work on this. It's my personality. I think, oh, I can't step away, because so just speaking to me personally, you and I both know it's something I need to work on. So
And who always tells you that?
it might be you. It might be you.
Take your okay, so here is my suggestion to anyone, whether
Everyone.
it's in recruiting or not recruiting. I am big about take your time. You need it. It is the way to re-energize yourself. I don't care if you're
Yes,
in
a good
recruiting. I
refresh.
don't care if you're a receptionist. I don't care if you're picking up trash on the side of the road. Take your time off. You've earned it. You've worked for it. I stay on my people internally about it. There's 10 people in ProSource staffing, and that's my staffing company, obviously. And no one takes their time. I mean, I've got people that have 5 weeks of vacation here and no one takes all their time. It blows my mind. Although I can't say anything. I don't really take all my time either, but I do take my
I
time
wasn't going to
to
mention that here on
re-energize.
live TV, but
I mean, I do. I'm going to take some time to get my mind right and get back to work. And I think, since I've switched gears more into the coaching and the peer advisory and that type of thing, it is different than the recruiting. The recruiting's quite stressful. And I think a lot of people don't really realize that unless they're in recruiting. It is very stressful.
it is.
And it's a lot of it can work on you mentally. So
It can.
everyone should be taking their time off. I'm a firm believer in that. So any parting words you want to say before we call it a day here? How can a job seeker contact you? How can someone who's looking for temporary employees or temp to hire employees, we don't do really temporary, temp to hire employees or direct hire employees, how can they reach you?
So you can reach me here on LinkedIn. You can reach me via email, the Lori at prosourcepeople.com, which is on my LinkedIn. And then, of course, our phone number, landline 281-478-0827. I am here basically from 7 to 5 each and every day. I'm happy to talk to anybody and I would love to learn and meet new people.
Yeah, absolutely. And also you can go to www.prosourcepeople.com for a list of jobs that the website, the job page is updated every 15 minutes. So as new orders are put in and the system sweeps it, it is loaded up to the website. You can check the website and see what jobs are on there and apply directly through the website. Or as Lori said, email her resume. Call the office, whatever's most convenient. I would recommend probably emailing a resume or applying online before calling the office. But anyway, if you're looking for a job or you're in need of additional help within your organization, reach out to ProSource Staffing. They're happy to help you. Lori, I know that you're super busy. There's a lot going on over there in the recruiting area.
We're hopping. Yes, we are.
And you've got the team over there handling it while you're on here talking to me. I appreciate you spending your time with me this morning. And I look forward to doing this again. I mean, there's always so much value that comes out of collaborating and doing these events. We'll have to make sure that we do this again very soon.
Okay.
So for now, I want to thank everyone for joining us. And if you have any questions for Lori, please reach out to her. If you are a leader looking to grow in your leadership realm, or to inquire more about Vistage Worldwide and our leadership programs, please feel free to reach out to me as well. We thank you all again for joining us and hope that you have a wonderful day.